Welcome once again to Hope Center Online, a time for us to talk about faith. But this week, it's more about shame. Shame on us. The title of the message is Your Choice, Crowd or Mob. Today is Palm Sunday, the start of what many people call Holy Week. It is generally a day of celebration, but with our 2020 hindsight, our understanding of history, we cannot help but being ashamed of the volatile events of this week. Palm Sunday celebrates Jesus' triumphal arrival in Jerusalem, an entry with pageantry and flair, but an arrival full of warning, fear, and eventually despair. It was at the pinnacle of Christ's ministry, and though he was opposed at every turn by the religious authorities, the people had slowly come to realize that Jesus was, truly different, truly special, that he was no ordinary man. His message was indeed revolutionary, though on inspection, it was truly quite simple. He was consistent in his talk, but more than that, he was consistent in his walk. He truly lived his life by his beliefs. He modeled life for us, how it should be lived, and his consistency, his obedience, his dedication to his mission began to touch hearts and minds wherever he went. And here he was, on this day in history, entering Jerusalem as a kind of conquering hero. One might expect him to ride in on a great white stallion, to the shouts of adulation. Well, there was no white horse, no grand show on his part. In fact, he rode quietly down the street on the foal of a donkey. That's a baby or young donkey. Think small. It must have been a nearly ridiculous sight. A full-grown man on a tiny donkey, his feet almost touching or dragging on the ground. It was not the picture of a conquering hero, but the adulation was there nonetheless. Not only did the people line up to welcome him, they cheered, they adored him. They put palm leaves to cushion his path, and hence the name Palm Sunday. Some even scattered their cloaks before him, a symbol of adoration. And through it all, they called out in his honor. They cried, Hosanna, which is a Hebrew expression that means save, but an expression that became praise when expressed to Jesus. They shouted, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the King of Israel. This is no faint praise. This is unadulterated adoration. One could not be faulted for assuming the people had finally come to know him as the long-awaited Messiah, the conquering hero who came to save them, to deliver them from their enemies. But you would be wrong. These are people, after all. These are fickle, demanding, forgetful, disobedient people. These are people easily led, easily deceived, and famous for changing their minds and their hearts on a dime. This was Sunday, the first day of the week. Jerusalem was bustling with people. It was the start of the Passover season, a time of great feasting and celebration. And yet, by Friday, those same people showed their other side, their fickle, never satisfied side. Those same people who adored him on Sunday shouted for his crucifixion on Friday. Polar opposite. That is us. But fickle is not the word to describe it. Think about your life, the times you made a commitment to something, only to have what we gently call a change of heart. We have become masters at changing our minds. Or have we? Could it be that others have become masters at changing our minds? Could it be that other people with their own selfish agenda can actually manipulate us into believing they are right? I tell you, not only is that true, but they have become so good at it, they actually manipulate us into thinking it was our idea in the first place. Looking back into history, and again, hindsight gives us perfect vision, we can see that there was nothing just about the way Jesus was treated. There was nothing legal about the kangaroo court that he faced with those religious leaders. They had long wanted him out of sight, out of their way, so they could continue their cushy lives of comfort, power, and authority. Their zeal to get rid of Jesus grew and grew till only his death would satisfy them. While the religious leaders enjoyed a certain kind of political authority, it was actually a ruse. The Roman governor used them to assist in keeping the population under control. It was like a fake government to give them an impression that they actually had some measure of control over their own homeland. But in truth, they had no real authority, and certainly not to declare Jesus guilty of anything close to justifying a death penalty. But that is exactly what those religious leaders wanted. They wanted Jesus gone, and gone for good. So they had to get the real authorities to make that judgment. They dumped the matter in the hands of the governor, Pontius Pilate. And Pilate interviewed Jesus, and he could find no crime. He tried to pacify the religious leaders with a completely unearned punishment, a practice the Romans perfected to inflict pain. Pilate had Jesus scourged. Now, we often hear people say that Jesus was whipped or flogged, but what the Romans did, it was called scourging, a kind of flogging, yes, but flogging on steroids, designed to inflict the maximum amount of pain and suffering, but just inches short of death. The scourging, with whips embedded with bits of metal, ripped into Jesus' flesh, tearing right to the bone, the wounds appearing as torn stripes across his back and legs. We just cannot imagine the pain, the abject suffering. But it was not enough for those religious leaders. And in classic rabble-rousing style, they moved a crowd to mob status, demanding that he be crucified. Pilate, who had declared Jesus innocent of any crime, offered to free a prisoner. He put up Jesus and then picked a hated murderer, a man called Barabbas. He was guilty of treason against his own countrymen, and he allowed the people to pick between Barabbas and Jesus. The mob, so stirred, so manipulated, the same people who cheered and celebrated Jesus just days before, on that day, they screamed and chanted, "Crucify him, crucify him." And as they say, the rest is history. And let me emphasize, it truly is history, not a myth nor a legend. It's a fact. Jesus was crucified, died, and buried. I hope this display of human nature begins to hit home. This account underlines our fickleness. But like I said earlier, fickle falls so seriously short of showing how wildly we can be manipulated. What happened in that week represents one of the greatest mood swings in the history of the world, from jubilation and adoration to demanding death in the cruelest form. Again, I say, I hope this display of human nature hits home, because that is us. Changing our minds back and forth, over and over again, on the slimmest of evidence, on the urging of others, even those with an agenda, an axe to grind, or a personal goal. Yeah, we're them. We may not have called for his crucifixion, but as a society, we have certainly turned our back. Jesus established limits. He set benchmarks, and he demonstrated with his own life how we should live. But over time, our society forgot about the love that he demonstrated, the forgiveness that he demonstrated, the sacrifice for others that he demonstrated. He didn't just talk it, he lived it. He demonstrated to us how we too could follow. But we allowed peer pressure to woo us. We fell in with the crowd, or dare I say, the mob. And now, collectively, we have a culture without Jesus. How's that working for you? How's that working for us? He told us there were only two real rules for life, two simple, two basic rules for life that would govern everything. One, he said, love the Lord your God with everything you've got. And two, love your neighbor as yourself. And he also said these two practices would cover all other laws, all other rules. We wouldn't need anything else. We wouldn't do harm. We wouldn't steal. We wouldn't do any of that if we were loving, truly loving our neighbors. He was saying that love is the answer. Love is the solution to war, the solution to greed and all that ails our world today. Instead of embracing Jesus and his revolutionary teaching, we embrace the crowd. We go with the flow, a flow that is taking us down the river to destruction. I started this message today by saying this is Holy Week, a week of ups and downs, a week with adoration at the beginning and chanting for crucifixion at the end, a week with death and resurrection, a week of promise and of warning, a week with a happy crowd and an angry mob. Which best describes us and our lives? As you walk with the crowd, look around. Can you see a mob? I remind you once again that we have a live gathering this afternoon online. We call it Zoom In. It's a time to review this very message, a time for you to ask questions. Please join us. Just go to hopecenter.ca, click the events page, and get the link to this afternoon's Zoom In. I also want to give you a heads up about something special that we'll be doing during Holy Week. Starting tomorrow and every day through Saturday, we will offer a message on the things that Jesus said while he was hanging on that cruel cross. He said 7 simple things, 7 short statements recorded by eyewitnesses at the crucifixion. Over the next 6 days, I'll unpack those 7 quotes. Please join me tomorrow and right through to Saturday at Hope Center or on our YouTube channel or our Hope Center Facebook page for the 7 things that Jesus said on the cross. And I hope that you'll join us again next Sunday, right here, 11 o'clock, Atlantic time, of course. We'll be here on our own website, hopecenter.ca. But you can also join us if you wish on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. But at hopecenter.ca, of course, you'll be able to see all the past messages and other things so you can catch up or find something that you've missed. In the meantime, I'm going to ask God to bless you here today and forevermore. Amen.